Hello and welcome everyone to the course Industrial Robotics and Automation. Uh, in today's class, we'll be starting the final module for the automation part of the course, Industrial Robotics and Automation. And this module is dedicated to PLCs, okay, or the in the long form it is known as the programmable logic controllers, okay. Since in this course typically we have seen the application of fluid power, okay, in industrial automation. So we'll try to relate, or we'll try to limit our discussions, okay, to this fluid power, that is pneumatics as well as hydraulics, okay, and see how we can control them with the help of the PLCs. Fine. So since it has been quite a few weeks, okay, since we have last uh, uh, studied about our pneumatics as well as our electro-pneumatics or hydraulics or electro-hydraulics module. So if you can just relate, okay, the pneumatic as well as your electro-pneumatic part. Fine. So just see, when we had two or more cylinders to control, okay. So suppose you had some sequence order of cylinder 1, and then you had the sequence order of cylinders 2, and then finally sequence order of cylinders 3, okay. That means when the first has to extend, and when the second has to extend, and similarly if you extend it to the third, okay, when will this third cylinder extend, and finally how, in which sequence will they retract back. If you just try to recall, okay, how we did or how we executed this sequence using our pneumatic circuits, and similarly how we executed this sequence using our electro-pneumatic circuits. Speaking of the pneumatic circuit, if you see, you had different type of pneumatic components, okay, that actually built in upon the all the logics, okay, finally, and all the logics were also processed, and at the end of the process again you got a pneumatic signal which actually engaged your uh, valves, okay, either be it your 3 by 2 valves or your 5 by 2 valves, similarly, or your 5 by 3 valves, okay, depending upon the type of cylinders that you are controlling, be it your single acting cylinders or your double acting cylinders, okay. The same thing, if you just recall how we executed all those things in case of our electro-pneumatic or our electro-hydraulic circuits, and then you see that uh, every component, okay, all the input components, be it a switch or a roller valve input, okay, finally, or a proximity inputs, we all connected to the relays, okay, and then finally we use the relays combinations, okay, to build upon the logics. Fine. Now imagine, okay, we have around 2 or 3 cylinders, or say more than that, okay, and we need to change the sequence of those cylinders, okay, and then just try to imagine that with the help of a completely pneumatic system or a completely hydraulic system, how are you going to execute it, okay. You have to change the entire piping, entire tubings, okay, so that you can change the sequence of the cylinders, okay, fine. That means all those logics that was initially built upon using your different ion valves or your flow control valves, okay, they all has to be changed, okay. Only then you can change the sequence of your cylinders, okay. That is the forward as well as the backward motion of the cylinders, fine, or your linear as well as your rotary actuators. Now, if I try to do that with the help of electro-pneumatic or electro-hydraulic systems, then what do I have to do? I actually have to change all my electrical portion of the circuit. Why? Because all those things, okay, the signal processing was done using your relays. That means again, since all your switches and your valves outputs as well as your sensors output were connected to the relays, again I have to change the relays, okay. That means the all the logic that I had done using different combination of the relays, those hard wirings, okay, these are actually both your pneumatic as well as your electro pneumatic or your hydraulic and electro hydraulic, they are all based on your hardwired controls, okay. That means the logics are hardwired. In case of pneumatic and hydraulic, you actually change the complete piping. Okay, in case of electro-pneumatic and electro-hydraulic, you don't interfere with uh, the pneumatic and your power section, basically the pneumatic or your hydraulic portion, but however you have to change the electrical control. Okay, so in the electrical control, what you do, you change your complete logic with the help of arranging your or rearranging your relays to suit a different types of applications. That means in both the forms, both your pneumatics as well as your electro-pneumatic, you have to actually change your complete wiring diagrams to execute any change in the sequence of the cylinders. Okay, now as the name suggests, okay, the PLCs, that means what you do, programmable logic controllers, you can actually program your logic, okay, through a software. Okay, fine, and you don't have to change your hardwired connections. Okay, that means all the connections that are made to the your linear actuators or your rotary actuators, okay, that means they are all going to remain intact. Okay, suppose you have to change a sequence. So say you have two cylinders, cylinder 1A and 2A, and initial condition was 1A plus 1A minus. So when I say 1A plus means 1A extending, 1A minus means 1A retracting, and then 2A plus 2A minus. Say suppose this was the logic, okay, and then you built upon your ladder diagram or your soft logic, okay, built upon so that your sequence was this. Suddenly if I have to change a sequence, say to 1A plus 2A plus 1A minus 2A minus, that means extension of the first cylinder, then extension of the second cylinder, then again retraction of the first cylinder, and then retraction of the second cylinder. I do not have to change any wiring diagrams, okay, or any hard wired, okay, that is your components in the PLCs. What you have to do, you have to just change your logic, okay, that is a ladder logic that you have built, okay, and then you can easily change the sequence of these cylinders. Okay, so this is the advantage that the PLCs have when you compare to a pneumatic or a hydraulic system to that of a electro-hydraulic or your electro-pneumatic systems when compared to that of your these systems running on a PLCs. Fine. So you will be seeing more in detail when we do the practice session of this module. Okay, that how are these programs written, okay, and how are they fed to the PLCs, and then you can see that the general connections to that your hardware part does not change, only your software, that is a ladder logic, has to change to execute any sequence in the change in sequence of the cylinders. Fine. So the PLCs, or in a broader term, okay, or in a more newer term, that is your PSCs, programmable automation controllers, they all come under the category of automation control systems. Okay, so what are these? These control systems are used in manufacturing plants of all types, okay, and some other applications that you may not have considered. For example, not only manufacturing, these PLCs and all those systems are also used in your traffic light, okay, problems and all those things. Okay, but however, we'll limit our discussion only to our uh, industrial case, okay, since the course is more designed or to cater to your industrial needs. Okay, fine. So again, if you see these automation control systems, they are actually can be executed either by your PLCs, known as your programmable logic controllers, or your PSCs, known as your programmable automation controllers. Fine. So the term PLCs were actually introduced in the early 1970s. Okay, the term PSC was developed to differentiate the older systems from today's much more powerful and flexible devices. Okay, that means the PSC is a more advanced version of a PLC. Okay, drawing an analogy, you can just consider, for example, you had in the earlier case a VHS videotape and a DVD. Okay, if you see, both the systems allow viewers to record TV programs, okay, for viewing at a later time. However, a DVD can also record music, data, and more. Similarly, if you compare a PSC to the PLC, so a PLC can do much, PSC can do much more than that of a PLC. But in general, the term PLCs are generally used to refer both your PLCs as well as your PSCs. Okay. In this course, we will limit our discussion only to PLCs. Of course, PSCs are for a time being, you should just know that the PSCs are much advanced version that of a PLCs. Okay. So further we will explore, okay, what are the different components that actually comprise of a PLC. However, in a basic nutshell, if you see, there will be a central component known as a PLC, and then you will have your input module as well as your output module. Fine. So apart from these three basic components that we discussed, okay, that is the first one that we discussed right now is your PLC processor or a controller, it is known as, and then you have your input and output modules placed to the either side of the PLCs. Apart from these basic components, you also have your chassis or your backplane, okay, for communication. Fine. Then you have your power supply that actually powers these processors as well as your input output modules, and then finally your programming software, okay, because it is the programming software that in which you will be writing your ladder logic. It is known as your ladder logic because the logic is in the form of a ladder, okay. So you have two rungs at the left and at the right, and then you build on the logic in the form of a ladder that actually flows from top to the bottom, and hence it is more often known as your ladder logic diagram, okay. Apart from these additional five, okay, components, you also have a network interface. Why? Because it is this network interface that actually communicates between all these five components. Fine. So let us look at more detail, okay, into each of these components. Fine. So we'll start with the processor, also known as your controller or your CPU, and that is basically the main portion of your PLCs, okay, where all your processing is done, okay. So basically it stores the control program and data in its memory. Fine. It also reads the status of the connected input devices. Fine. So whatever devices is connected to it, okay, whether it is on or off, so these status are being read by this controller, and then okay, once these status are read from the input devices, it runs the program, and depending upon what is the logic of the program, what it will do, it will try to switch on some output, okay, and that is your execution of the control program finally, okay. So depending upon some inputs, okay, it executes some outputs, okay, fine. So that is also a job of the processor, okay. So what can be some outputs, like for example turning on a light, okay, or if a fan you are attaching to an output device and to switch on the fan. Similarly, it can adjust the speed or the temperature. Fine. So the controller or the main PLC that is there, it comes in a various physical form. If you see to the picture on the left, you can see here that this is a processor, okay, and this actually fits into its chassis, okay. So you have a chassis at the back, there it is actually just inserted. Fine. So I told you, because see, if you see the previous slide, you have your chassis or the backplane, okay, and this itself comes in a variety of forms, okay. Hence you also have your processor that actually comes in a variety of form. It can either be fixed into a back chassis plane, or it can be of a standalone PLC type. So when I talk about a standalone, that means your central processor as well as your input output modules, they are all embedded in a single unit, okay, and hence it is known as your standalone PLCs. Fine. So that is the part, that is central part, okay, is known as your processor of the PLCs. Apart from that, okay, it also requires your input output modules. Why? Can you directly connect suppose say input device to a PLC? Say a processor is there, can you directly connect? No. Why you cannot connect to a PLC? Any idea? Because see, only then you will be able to understand the actual use of your input output modules. So say suppose I have a sensor data. Fine, I have a sensor. A sensor is an input device, okay. So can I connect the sensor directly to a PLC? No. Yeah, right. So why? Because your processor actually is a digital form. So suppose your input module, it may be a digital, it may be an analog module. Fine. So suppose if it is an analog module, it has to be converted to a digital module, okay, and digital signal before it is being processed. Second reason, even if it is a, for example, a binary signal, say suppose you are getting 5-volt system, somewhere you have a 12-volt system, or a 24-volt system, 124-volt system, or say in terms of amperes, okay. Still, why in that case, what is the second need, okay, that is required to be converted before it can be processed? No, see, typical what voltage actually runs the microcontrollers and all this? Any idea? How much amount of voltage is required?
5 volts, 5 volts.
No, it's much less than that. It is around 1.2, 1.8 like this, okay, and all your currents are also very small, okay, fine. So even if it is a digital signal, okay, so for example, suppose I have an input sensor, say you are working on a 24-volt signal, fine. If you can just recall an electro-pneumatic system that was based on a 24-volt system, so you have a sensor, okay, fine. It detects, so whenever something is detected into vicinity, it actually gives an output signal, that is your 24-volt system. So there directly you cannot put that into your controller, fine. So you actually have to regulate that voltage, okay. So because of all these things, we require some input modules, fine. Now similar is the case. So once you provide the input modules, and then you have your processor which actually executes your ladder logic, okay, and then what it will do, it will try to energize some output, it will give some output, right? So can you connect directly to the output devices? No, again the same thing, because see, whatever is the process information, you will require only digital signal, so that will be required to convert it to an analog. Suppose if there is something that requires an analog output, for example, somewhere you are controlling the speed of a fan, okay, or a proportional solenoid in case of fluid power, okay, so you have to open the solenoid, okay, proportionally, so there you have to convert into an analog signal. So again you will be having an output module in between, fine. Then again the same thing, can you just energize a valve, okay, or can you just energize a solenoid valve with the help of some small 1.8 volt or 1 volt signal? No, you require some amplifications also, fine. So again then you will be requiring one output module finally, to which your output devices are connected, fine. So basically if you just try to understand in a layman language, okay, of a PLC, so whenever I am talking about PLC, you can visualize three things. One is your input module here, okay, to the left hand side. Then you have in between your PLC or your processor, and then you have your output modules where all your output elements are connected, okay, fine. So although apart from this many other components are there, but in basics whenever we see about the PLCs, these things should come into our mind, okay. So you'll be having an input module, you'll be having a processor, and then you'll be having your output module, fine. Okay, now let us go more deep into the input output modules, okay. So these actually physically connect the field devices, okay. So what do you mean by physically connect? Suppose you have a push button, okay, or you have your sensors, okay. So basically these input output modules are required to physically connect to the field devices, okay. So that means the output of those sensors and your all your switches, they are actually connected to your input modules, fine. Now input modules convert electrical signals coming in from the input field devices such as push button to electrical signals that the PLC can understand, okay. And then vice versa, what will the output module do? Output module will take information coming from the PLC and then convert it to the electrical signals so that your output devices can be triggered, okay, say a solenoid valve or a motor. Again, in case of a PLCs, okay, these input modules, input output module comes in various forms. If you see these are the actual photographs of the PLCs, okay, that if you see here in the left. So basically you have input output modules that actually fits in this chassis. So this is the main controller here, okay, and then you have your input modules, we can just fit into the chassis. You can also slide it one after the other, okay. So that we'll see later, okay, in the different types of backplanes in communication, that we see what are the different types of this. But then these are the input output modules, okay, that is actually fit. In another form, these output modules can also be placed at a remote location, fine. So when do you require an, just I want to ask you, like, when do you require an input or an output module to be located near to the PLC or to be located at a remote location? Fine. Suppose say there are 2 or 3 devices, right? And those devices you have to hardwire them, okay, to these input output modules. If they are located nearby, okay, then it is always advisable that you use an input output module that actually fits into the chassis plane itself, okay, because all the wires will again come back here. But say suppose the input output devices are very far away from the PLC, okay. Say suppose your PLC is here and your all your sensors or your actuation devices, for example, all your valves, okay, your solenoid valves and other motors and lamps, they are all located at a far away, say around 300-400 meters away from there. Now and then you imagine you have around 10 to 12 input devices as well as your output devices. So imagine the number of amount of wires that will be required to bring it from those, okay, from that place to that of your input output module that actually is fitted just beside the PLC panels, okay. So that means you will have several kilometers of wires running to connect those. So in that case what we do, we actually place our input output module remotely at a location where our devices are there, okay. From there we use a network interface or a network connection, okay, to link those input output modules to that of the PLC that is here. Fine. Okay, so both types of input output module comes, one that is actually fitted in the same chassis plane as that of the PLC and the other remotely located from the PLCs. From there you can, which is nearer to the your input output devices, okay, and from there you can use a network connection back to that PLC using only a single wire connection. Fine. So these are the 2 types basically that is available. Fine. Now let us see what is there in the input modules, okay, and what are the different types of input modules. So input modules interfaces directly to devices, for example, such as switches and temperature sensors. Okay, fine. Input modules convert many different types of electrical signals, such as 124-volt AC, or some switches may be working on a 24-volt DC. Okay, some apparatus may be working on, say some sensors may be giving out the current output, so they will be requiring, for example, 4 to 20 milliamperes. So basically the function of the input module is to turn these type of either a voltage or a current into a digital signal that can be understood by the PLCs. Fine. So if you see here, this is a module, input output module, where you have your A to D conversion, that is your analog to digital conversion. Why is it required? For any analog signal, okay, for example, instead of having a switch, for example, if there is a switch in this case, so either it will be on or it will be off, okay, so it will either have 0 or 1, so that is a digital signature or a binary signal itself. However, if you have a temperature that is to be measured, fine, say you are measuring a temperature range of between say 10 to 30 degrees Celsius, okay, that means you will be having a analog value, okay, and that analog value has to be converted, so you will also be having a to D conversion, okay, or ADC it is known as. Finally that digital signal will actually be communicated to the PLCs. Fine. Again the PLC processor will do the calculation and give you the digital signature, the digital signal, which again has to be converted back to the analog using a DAC converter, which will be placed in the output module. Fine. So you have a variety of again input modules. I told you why a variety is required, because you have different variety of signals that are coming. Fine. So say a signal may be from a switch, okay, that only gives you a binary signal. You may also have a pressure sensor, you may have a temperature sensors, okay, so both can be your analog. Fine. So again, even in the analog input sensors, either the sensor may be a current based sensor which is giving you a current values, say in this case it is a 4 to 20 milliamperes current, okay, depending upon what is your pressure or your temperature. Then you may also have your voltage type of sensors, okay, that gives your output in the voltage. Fine. So suppose you have to detect between 0 to 30 volt, 0 to 30 degrees Celsius. So that 0 to 30 degrees Celsius or 0 to 100 degrees Celsius may be calibrated to give you 0 to 10 volt, okay, upon the sensors. Then again this 0 to 10 volt will have to be again what, converted into a digital signal, fine, before it can be processed by the controller of the PLCs, fine. Now one important very important concept, okay, for the selection of your input module, okay, depending upon your signals, fine. Now see, if it is a digital, it is very easy, okay. Now say suppose you have an analog signal, okay, that you have to process, then of course you will be requiring an input module that supports your analog signal. Now say you have to measure 0 to 100 degrees Celsius, fine, of a temperature, which the sensor actually gives the value of 0 to 10 volt, okay. So you will be having your calibration being done, okay. So what will be the calibration? Say the calibration is typically that whenever there is a 0 degrees Celsius, then the sensor is giving you 0 volt, and whenever you have your 100 degrees Celsius temperature, then the sensor is giving you 10 volt, okay. Now if I connect this sensor to that of your input module, can this 0 to 10 volt be understood by the processor of the PLC? Anyone?
No, sir.
No. What is required? This 0 to 10 volt has to be converted into what?
Digital signal.
Digital signature. Okay. Now when a digital signal. So when I talk about the digital signal, what comes into your mind? The resolution of the digital signal. Okay. Now the resolution of that means the discretization step, okay, up to which you can do. So that depends upon the bit value of the ADC converter, okay. That means for an analog signal, if you can see, there is one pin that is coming, okay, that is 0 to 10 volt, and then at the outlet you can have 8 pins, you can have 12 pins, you can have 16 pins. Why? Where 8 pin, that means it is a 8 bit, okay. 16 pins, that means 16 bit, fine. So the more higher the bit, okay, that means higher is the resolution. For example, an 8 bit, how many divisions can you make in an 8 bit ADC converter? How many discretization? Anyone? 2 to the power of 8, okay. So it means 256 discretization you can make, right? So when all are 0, for example 0 0 0 0, you know how you do the connection between binary to decimal and decimal to binary, if you see. So you have your 0 to 8 bits, and if all are 0, then you will get 0, and if all are 1, that is 2 to the power of 0, okay, 2 to the power of 1, and then again 2 to the power of 2, like this. If all are 1, then you will be getting 255, okay. So that means what is the what are the exact discretization amount from between 0 to 255? That makes your 256 discrete elements that can be processed together, okay. Now say instead of using an 8-bit controller, if you go to a 8-bit processor for an ADC, if you go to a 16-bit processor, okay, then what would happen? You can get a much higher amount of discrete value. That means when I'm talking about 8-bit, that means that 0 to 10 volt or your 0 to 100 degree centigrade temperature, you can actually divide it between 256 values, right? So that means higher is the bit value, higher is the resolution, fine. But do you every time require a very higher resolution? You have to think about that, okay, before selecting a proper input module. For example, a 8-bit, okay, ADC controller, it can come in a few thousand rupees, okay. But if you jump to 16-bit ADC, you know what will be the cost? It might run into lakhs, fine, because there the resolution is very specific. Now say suppose your, why I'm saying this is because these things are very important to understand, especially when you are selecting anything based on your any device when you are connecting in, be it your robotics part or your automation part. Say suppose you have a sensor, okay, that is used to detect the temperature of a room, okay, and your sensor can give say suppose resolution of say suppose 1 volt. So it gives 1 volt, 2 volt, 3 volt, 4 volt, 5 volt up to 10 volt. Okay, and then you are selecting a 16-bit A to DC converter. Then what you are doing? You are actually going for very small amount of resolution. That means it can actually convert the signal into millivolts. Fine. So do you think millivolt will be required? Why? Because your sensor is not capable to give millivolt output, right? Then what is the purpose of actually wasting so much of amount of money to actually use a 16-bit controller to process all the sensors into a millivolt when your sensor itself is giving an output in terms of 1 volt, 2 volt, 3 volt, 4 volt, 5 volt. That means the resolution of the sensor does not match that of the ADC converter, right? So that means while selecting the input module, you have to choose your module appropriately depending upon what is the resolution of the sensors. Second important part, okay, that very much comes into the picture, okay, of your any input output module or your ADC converter is your anyone second what does it come when you require about something about sensing apart from resolution? Anyone give it a try? Apart from resolution, what is the second most important part if you're trying to sense anything?
The limit voltage control.
No, the limit itself is a resolution. Second one is your sampling frequency. Are you getting my point? Now say suppose sampling frequency, that means how fast is it able to detect. Okay, say suppose the resolution is 0.1 volt, okay, or say 1 millivolt, say, but that 1 millivolt, how fast it is able to capture. Fine. Okay, say suppose it can have a few megahertz or a few millihertz depending upon how fast you can change. Okay, now say example, suppose somebody gave you a sensor, okay, that has some few millivolts. That means you want to measure the temperature accurately, so you can go for a higher bit resolution of your input module. Okay, that means you can measure every bit of temperature when it is changing, right, from 0 to 0.1 degree Celsius, 2 degree Celsius, 3 degree Celsius. But say suppose that 0.123 or 1 degree Celsius is the room temperature. Okay, so do you think in a room temperature is it essential to give a very high sampling frequency when the purpose is to sense the room temperature? Say suppose room temperature is just now say suppose 36 degrees Celsius. So within 1 millisecond will it change, or what will be the do you have any until unless the application is very severe that actually requires some very high sampling frequency, otherwise it does not make a difference. Even after 10 minutes, if it becomes 37 degrees Celsius, that is sufficient to let you know, okay, that the temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. So why do you have to go for a very high frequency rate, sampling frequency? Okay, so these are the things that should keep into your mind. Okay, now say suppose again in the same thing, suppose you are working in a food processing industry, right, where you have certain amount of say composition of some food coming, and then you have the second composition, and both has to be mixed at a particular temperature. Okay, and that temperature should be maintained. Fine. Now say suppose even if that temperature changes by say suppose 0.1 degree Celsius or this, then it will have a big effect. So in that case you can use for a you can go for a higher bit of your this A to DC converter or your input module. Second, if it says that the even your sampling frequency, that means that temperature should not even fluctuate for say suppose 1 millisecond or 2 milliseconds. That means that can have a adverse impact. For example, during the manufacturing of medicines, okay, even a few 0.1 or 0.2 degrees centigrades for a very small amount of time can actually alter the composition of the for example your tablets or the syrup. So in that case, then again you will be requiring a very high sampling frequency rate of your A to DC converter. So see, the prime objective to explain you this is that whenever you are going to select some, because see, when you are doing this course, suppose you get into any other work, okay, any project where you will be requiring some amount of sensors, okay, or your output devices to be connected to your input output modules, then these are the questions that should pop up into your mind before you select a particular input output modules. Fine. So again, these are the things that we have already discussed. For example, your input output modules can be your discrete or your digital, okay, and then it can be your analog. And then similarly, how do we change your analog module to the digital, okay, depending upon the what is the bit resolution of your ADC converter. Fine. Okay, one thing you should remember is that your digital module, okay, that all your digital module that actually comes between your 2 to 32 devices and a configuration of 2 to 32 devices, with most popular being your 16 devices. That means when you go to the market to buy a module, you can get most commonly it is your 8 and 16. That means you can get a module of 8 input devices, 8 digital input, or you can get a 16 digital input. Generally it comes into these two configurations. Fine. That means in one module you can connect 8 digital devices. Okay, when I talk about digital devices, that means I'm talking about your switches or your sensors, digital sensors. For example, your proximity sensing. So say suppose I have 8 proximity sensors in my one of the application of my, say suppose your pneumatic or your hydraulic systems, where you have 4 cylinders, and then again in all the 4 cylinders the extreme position of the cylinders are to be detected by a say inductive or your capacitive proximity sensors. Both are giving your what? It gives your output, and that output is either 0 or a 1. That means whenever something is detected it will give 1, when nothing is detected it will give 0. Okay, that means they are all for digital in nature. Fine. So that means these 8 sensors I can directly connect it to one module consisting of your 8 devices. Now, okay, so all your digital signals, they only take 1 bit, okay, to represent the state of a device. That means if the state of the device can either be 0 or it can be 1. That means in terms of memory space, it takes only 1 bit of space to designate a digital input. Okay, fine. That means if you have a 16-point digital discrete module, it will only require 16 bits of memory into the controller. Fine. Now that if you compare it to an analog module, okay, that means for an analog module, each sensor that is connected, okay, it will take 1 word to represent a number. Fine. So at a 16-point analog module will require 16 words of memory in the controller. Fine. So this you should remember in case of your memory. All your analog will take, each analog output or each analog input that is actually connected will take 1 word of space in your memory, and each digital will take only 1 bit of space. Fine. So that means each word in a PLC takes 16 to 32 bits depending upon the configuration of a PLC. If your PLC is a 16-bit PLC, that means your one word will consist of 16 bit, and if it is a 32-bit PLC, that means your one word will consist of 32 bits. Fine. And then if you have your 8 your analog module, okay, input module, that means 8 into 16 you multiply, that much will be the amount of space that will be required for your PLCs to process these 8 analog input module data, okay, because it would be requiring 8 words to do that. Fine. So similar is the case of our output modules. Okay, the only difference is that it works just opposite to that of your input modules. So in case of a digital connection, what it will do, it will, after the PLC programming, okay, has processed your input data, and based on that input data it will actually command some control function. So the use of the output or the function of the output module is to convert that, okay, into the signal that can actually be processed, okay, to energize your output. Okay, and if it is an analog output that is to be done, for example, where is analog output, you may be requiring a proportional solenoid valve, okay, to open it proportionally, or say suppose there is a motor whose speed has to be controlled, that has to run at a particular speed, then again after the PLCs it is again giving your digital data, then that digital again has to be converted to an analog signal using a DAC, okay, that is digital to analog converter, and then after that you can actually process that data to finally energize your output, okay, in terms of, again that may be in terms of your voltage or in terms of your current, okay, depending upon what is the output device that you are actually working. Fine. So these are some of the devices. For example, directly switch on the fan or a light or a valve. In our case, since we are working with a fluid power, it will either be your solenoid valve, okay, that may be digital if it is just opening or closing the valve, or you may also have a proportional solenoid valve that actually opens a particular percentage so that you can actually regulate the flow through the valves. Okay, so that will be your analog type of devices. Fine. So we'll stop here today with these output modules. In the tomorrow class, we'll continue with the different other elements of the PLC. For example, your chassis or your backplanes, and then your communication devices, your power supply, all those things. And then we will be starting with our PLC programmings. Okay, fine. So I'll stop here.